Hello everyone, it's Marianna Sigala from the University of South Australia, and it is my pleasure to be with you today to contribute to your important conference. I really wished I could be there with you, but unfortunately the circumstances do not allow it. But I am there with you in spirit, and I hope with my presentation I can provide you with some more food for thought to discuss during the deliberations of this conference. So what do I aim to do in this presentation? I will basically try to explain to you and deliver my major findings during the last years within the field of wine tourism research. And my research mainly focuses in terms of how we can make the wine tourism experiences to be more beneficial, both to the wine communities and wine producers, but also to consumers. When I was looking at what research has been done in the area of wine tourism research, I have basically made a major observation. Research until now has mainly focused on two major issues: how wine tourism can contribute to economic goals or development, either for a winery, how to increase wine sales directly to consumers, or how to promote a brand of a wine, or how to help regional communities to develop through agriculture, wine producing, and of course the tourism activity relating to that. If we look from the consumer perspective, the research has mainly focused in terms of how can we design wine tourism experiences that can provide to consumers aesthetic or hedonic benefits. How do they achieve pleasure? How do they taste the wine, and how this contributes to their happiness, and how do they feel more satisfied from these hedonic experiences? So based on this observation, I think there is a major gap in the literature and of course in the research and the practice that we are doing. We have missed out how we can actually use wine tourism to also produce sociocultural impacts to local communities. How can we use wine tourism as a vehicle to promote the local culture and heritage? How to enable people to learn about local cultures, appreciate them, reconnect with the locals, and find something to use to self-develop themselves, and of course to increase their awareness and understanding of other people. From the consumer point of view, we have also missed out how we can actually design wine tourism experiences to enable people not only to achieve hedonic or aesthetic benefits, but also how they can use the consumption of wine and wine tourism experiences as well as a vehicle for transforming themselves, learning something new, changing their behavior, rethinking about their assumptions, their perceptions about people or cultures. So based on these gaps, I had been working quite intensively to try to give answers to these two major questions. During the last years, my research has produced two major books, which, if you're interested, you can easily find in the market. One book is actually focusing on how the tourism supply and the wine producers can use wine tourism to promote their economic benefits, but also help the socio-cultural impacts of their communities. While the second book mainly focused at a macro scale level in terms of how destinations and not individual companies can use wine tourism to achieve cultural and sustainable development as well. In these books, I basically try to argue that wine tourism, as I said, it can also be a vehicle to achieve sustainable development, particularly in regional areas. And it can also help the consumers to self-develop themselves, to transform, and of course, to learn something new. I basically draw my arguments on three major theories that they are actually illustrated with multiple case studies in terms of how they are applied in real practice. I focus on concepts that they relate to social innovation, another perspective and theory which relates to transformative service research and transformational learning, and the third theory and conceptual framework that relates to what we call cultural landscapes. And I will explain very briefly what these theories are and give you some examples from the wine tourism sector as well. When we are talking about transformative service research, basically what this field of research argues is that by consuming services, people are not just passive consumers, that they destroy value and they seek only pleasure or hedonic benefits. Transformative service research basically argues that through the consumption of services, consumers can also contribute to their own well-being, not only physical well-being, but also emotional, psychological, and of course, cognitive, and to the well-being of the communities as well. Transformative service research heavily draws on theories that they have to do with transformative learning, which basically again argues that the focus of attention is not what you learn, but how you learn it. How do you change your perceptions and how do you see things differently to change your behavior? What about social innovation? Social innovation, it's another interesting theoretical underpinning that it argues that in order to innovate a new product, a new service, you don't really have to only achieve socio-technical innovation. So if, for example, you need to create a new wine, you don't have to innovate a new wine making technique or a new way to cultivate the grapes. This is a socio-technical innovation. But basically, you can create a new wine experience or drinking product by changing the way people interpret the product that you have. And the way that you change the way people interpret and understand your product is by using stories. So social innovation, for example, is something that Haagen-Dazs or Airbnb have used a lot. If you reflect back in the past, during the 50s, ice cream was the cheapest dessert that anyone could have. If, for example, you were going to buy ice cream and bring it to somebody as a present, they wouldn't appreciate. Haagen-Dazs, during the mid-50s, they have created a whole paradigm change in terms of how people perceive and consume ice cream. People went out to have an ice cream, not an ice cream, a Haagen-Dazs ice cream, to reconnect with their families, to have quality time to spend with their children by eating ice cream. So it was not the ice cream per se, which was of course of very good quality, but it was the social act and the practice of people going out together and connecting, re-socializing, connecting with their families. Airbnb has done the same. The service, the offering that Airbnb does is not new. People used to share their homes for a long time, even before the internet. You would have a second home and you will share it with your friends and you will promote it through word of mouth. When the Airbnb arrived, you are still doing the same. You're sharing your home, but you are sharing it online with the electronic word of mouth. And of course, you are sharing it not only with the people you know or the friends of the friends, but you're sharing it even with strangers, people that you don't know, but you trust them based on the platform and the reviews that Airbnb gives you. So what Airbnb has done to become so successful? What was the social innovation they have achieved? Because their offering is not new. There is no innovation. Well, think about the motto of Airbnb. Airbnb promotes itself like what? Live like a local. You are not what you own. You are what you share. So basically what Airbnb does, it's trying to change the mentality and the interpretation of sharing your home. Sharing your home, it means that you are not what you own. You are what you share. It goes against capitalism. You don't have to own a second home. You can have a shared home with somebody else. And you will go to live with somebody else because you want to live like a local. You don't want to go to a commercial traditional hotel and be a tourist. You want to meet a local, interact and have a meal with them. So the offering is not different. They have created a story, a myth, to enable you to see things differently. And that is what we call social innovation. Now, how can you do social innovation in food and wine, or specifically in food and wine tourism? You can do it if you enrich the wine tourism experience with not just the physical attributes of the wine, but you add to the physical attributes in terms of how the wine tastes or how you have actually cultivated the grapes with credence attributes. Attributes that they will explain to people and tell a story why this wine is organic, why it is sustainable, why it helps local communities grow, have a job, promote their local culture. And on top of that, you can enrich a wine tourism experience and a wine product with cultural attributes. You can tell a story to explain how grape growing relates to the history of the place. What were the tools that they have used? What is the symbolic value of wine festivals and why they were important in the local communities in the past? How the festivals are being used by the local communities now, how people use the festivals to connect with each other or to revive their history and the memory. All these aspects, when you add them together, you can create a very nice story to change the way people see the wine and the wine tourism, and of course to learn and engage with the local communities, the history and the cultural historical values of the local community. So there are many synergies to build between wine culture and tourism. If we are talking about wine production, the technical people and the professionals, they will talk about the terrain or the wine terroir and how this contributes to the physical characteristics of the wine. We have the flavors, the aromas, the different tastes that you can have, all the acidity, which is important. And you can use all these characteristics to do what we said before, the socio-technical innovation or the technological innovation behind it. But if you want to create cultural and social innovation, you need to focus on the tourism field, whereby we're talking about the touristic terroir or the winescape with all the physical, architectural elements in it, the history, the place, the interpretation, the churches, the landscapes, the people themselves, the stories of the people, the cultural values, the habits, the socio-cultural values that they have with consuming wine. Some people, they even refer to these concepts as the cultural landscape. It is a cultural landscape because it doesn't only include the physical characteristics of the landscape, the trees, the buildings. It also symbolizes the connection of the people with the land, the use of the land by the people and how the land relates to their economic development, but also the way that they relate with each other, produce their culture and their histories. So if you draw on all these characteristics and you can tell a story, this is what people can use to engage more deeply and not just with an economic, hedonic or an aesthetic perspective with the community, but also from a socio-cultural, spiritual or cognitive perspective as well. So how does social innovation relate to transformative service research and the benefits that people can achieve? Think about a very simple question. Why people drink? If we go back to the very famous Maslow hierarchy of needs, people will say, well, people drink because they want to satisfy their basic need. They're thirsty. Yeah, the body needs water, liquid to survive. But we drink also for social reasons, to socialize, to connect with others, to spend quality time with others, to celebrate. People use drinking to build self-esteem and ego. Particularly in China, as you know, wine drinking is a status symbol. You embrace the Western values and you show to everyone that you are wealthy, you know the Western culture, and you can follow it. Can we use wine tourism to achieve the higher level needs? Can we use wine tourism to enable people to learn, to develop themselves, to change habits, behaviors, perceptions? Actually, we can do it if we apply the theories that I explained before. So think about the example of Red Bull, because this is what they have done. They have applied the theories very well. How Red Bull promotes the drink? Do they actually say to people, and they emphasize on the technical characteristics of the drink, that it uses taurine? Do they explain to people the chemical consistency of the drink and how different that is with other drinks? And what are the technical characteristics of this feature that can enable people to do different things? Not really. Nobody will understand it, and nobody will be interested on the technical characteristics, to be honest. But why Red Bull is important? Is it because it promotes and emphasizes on feelings, how you feel when you drink, or if you feel happy, or if the taste is nice, or they promote the experiences, since everybody nowadays speaks about the experience economy? Well, in reality, they don't emphasize and promote on any of them. Actually, they do, but their major focus is not on that. The way that Red Bull promotes the drink and they make a difference is that they sell the drink as a solution to a problem that people have. They promote the drink as a solution for somebody to overcome his or her physical limits to achieve a goal, a mission that is very important to him or her, and it has meaning to him or her. You drink Red Bull, so you are awake all night long and you study hard and you go to pass the exams to go to university. So you drink because you want to achieve your goal, which is very important to you. It gives meaning to your life. You drink Red Bull because you are an adventure person and you want to exceed your physical limits and run the marathon. You drink Red Bull because you are a person who likes clubbing and you want to stay away for 2 days, dancing all day, because this is what it's important to you and it makes meaning. So what actually Red Bull sells, it's not the experience. There are many experiences that people can actually adapt, but you only adapt the experience that is important to you. It gives you purpose for life and it has a meaning. So if you want to compete in the meaning-making society and not in the experience society, how do you do this? Well, you have to persuade people what is their meaning in life, and you create stories to persuade them about it. So if you go to the website of Red Bull, you will see that they have numerous of stories of heroes that they are athletes, they are musicians, they are artists, they are car racing pilots, they are bicycle people, that they actually explain you how by drinking Red Bull, they have achieved their mission impossible. And they actually made them to keep alive focus on their goal, and achieve meaning in life. So Red Bull is not only about achieving the technical innovation of the drink. They're not selling a drink. They're not selling a liquid. They're selling the meaning behind it. And if you don't have a meaning, they even sell you the way to find it. Can wine tourism become a transformational experience? A transformational experience that can help regional local economies to perform well at an economic level and socio-cultural level, and a transformational experience to help wine tourists to become better people and achieve their goals. Yes, it is possible. Think about these examples, which, as I said, they are explained in my books. There is a wine in Greece, from an island in Greece, that is not famous for wine producing or even grape growing, the island of Chios, that a local resident suddenly discovered in some mythology books that there used to be a wine growing and producing on the island called the Ariousios Inos, or wine in English. And what this person, wine entrepreneur, has done, he went back to books, and there are many fables and stories and history going back to ancient Greece, explaining what was the viticulture, what was the enological history of Greece, what was the cultural, historical meaning of grape growing or wine making or even wine drinking, or the rituals that the ancient Greeks were doing to the gods by wine. And by going through the history books and the mythology, this guy has actually found that on this island, that nowadays it doesn't produce any wine so far until, and it never had any reputation about grape growing during the last centuries. There is potential to revive a very old local grape variety, the one that it was mentioned even in the fables of Homer. And he created the story behind it. Actually, he didn't create the story, he revived the story. He revived the story he found in the fables. And he created the story by creating a book that is available online and everybody can download and read it. He created a multimedia video with historians, with local people telling their stories and what they knew about this wine and the festivals they had and different other fables that they existed. And he also created a wine museum that you can go and visit with ancient objects that he has found in his land that he owned on the island, and with different other objects that they tell their own stories about what was grape growing and wine making on this island, on the island of Chios. So the story goes back to Homer times. He actually discovered that Chios, the island, it was very popular among the Greek gods, particularly the Greek god of wine called Dionysos, who fell in love with this island, and he gave his blessing. The son of the god of wine was born on this island. He was called Inopios, which means the one who makes the wine, and many other stories that they relate to why the island of Chios during the ancient times, it was like the Bordeaux, the city of France, that we have nowadays as the symbol of very good wine. So basically what this wine entrepreneur has done, he has started recultivating a lost local grape variety within the piece of land and the region whereby the fables and the historical books, they were claiming that previously they have been growing wine. He added credence values to this wine that he is producing by following the grape growing viticulture rules and by following the procedures of winemaking that they are explained in the historical books as well. And on top of that, he also added all these fables and stories that they relate to the wine drinking of Homer, of the gods, that people can learn and reflect, reconnect with their history, and learn more about this, not just wine terroir, but also the cultural landscape of where this wine is being produced. Now, can this wine producer claim that he actually produces a very authentic wine, exactly as it used to be in the past? Well, to be honest, not really. Nobody can prove it. We don't have a sample of the wine back in the ancient Greece to compare it with what he produces. So there is no way that we can establish what we call objective authenticity. But consumers themselves, they're not interested in objective authenticity. They're not interested to test whether this wine is exactly the same as in ancient Greece. They're more interested in the symbolic or the existential authenticity of the wine. Whether the wine and what it symbolizes, it is similar or it reflects in some way the socio-cultural values and the stories of the past. And whether they can reflect on that to learn why they have to consume it in terms of the qualities that the wine has and how it can help their physical well-being or emotional and spiritual well-being, and how it can help them to reconnect with their own local terroir if they come from there, or if they want to learn more about the local community. So through the Ariusio story, this wine tourism entrepreneur tries to engage the people, not only behaviorally by tasting the wine, touching the grapes, the soil of the local island, but also cognitively by learning the history, reflecting on that, emotionally by reconnecting their ancestors with their previous family roots, or even spiritually, why the ancient Greeks were doing the rituals to the gods, what this meant, why the wine helped people to reflect on what is the importance of wine with reconnecting with others or doing trade with other communities. So basically, this social innovation and transformative learning adds something that wine experiences or experience research in general has been missing so far. We tend to analyze experiences, and particularly wine tourism experiences, based on what people do. I step on the grapes, I taste the wine, or what people learn, how to match wine and food, for example, or how to do winemaking, or the emotional aspect, the aesthetic and the hedonic. And so far, we haven't talked about the spiritual connection that people can have between the wine or the wine experience itself with the socio-cultural connection and the symbolism of the landscape or the cultural landscape and the communities that they have produced this wine. And this is what this dimension adds. And enable the people, of course, to achieve these transformational development benefits, and also help the local communities to revive their stories, their histories, maintain them, preserve them, and interpret them and deliver it to their visitors. Another example that I will urge you to go and investigate, either on their website or by reading my books. There is a famous wine region here in South Australia where I'm based. It's called Barossa. Seppeltsfield is one of the most famous winemakers and cellador in the region. If you visit their website or even the real cellador, you will see that they have created a whole cluster and network of companies and experiences around their cellador. They have a jam factory where people can actually go and learn from local entrepreneurs how to produce a glassware, how to do some sculpture, how to create knives, how to create glasses that they can be used for food, for wine, and you can learn the local art making. You can buy the local artifacts and support the local artisans. You can have fun in exhibitions, or you can also learn yourself the art of making a glassware or a knife or anything else that it's available there. There is another company which is called VRNJAČKA, and they specialize on trying to help people reconnect with nature and how important it is to produce and to consume organic products, particularly for fragrance products for your body and face, or even for eating. They will teach you how to produce an organic soap from olives. They will teach you how to do your own sauces for your spaghetti by using local products and explain you the physical characteristics of these ingredients, but also their socio-cultural meaning to the locals that they have actually produced it. So there are many ways in which socio-cultural sustainable development can be achieved through wine tourism. What are the implications? Well, there are many implications, but I will only focus on three major ones, I would say. We need to think wine tourism not only as an opportunity to sell wine and make economic profits. We need to think of wine tourism as the strategic opportunity for nations, for local communities to develop themselves in a sustainable way. How to achieve this and how do you govern and what type of policies you develop, that's the big question mark. To achieve socio-cultural economic benefits, you need to collaborate and create synergies with many other entrepreneurs around you. It's not just about wine. It's about agriculture. It's about glassware making. It's about producing organic products from local ingredients. It's about local festivals and dancers. So how do you create partnerships? How do you expand the wine tourism experience beyond the wine? You need to identify partners, you need to collaborate, and you need to create new clusters. And of course, you should never forget your local communities, your residents, your people. You really need to follow a bottom-up approach by actively engage them in value co-creation, because people make the difference. Thank you very much. I hope you really found my presentation quite interesting and triggering. I hope I gave you some food for thought to think, and I wish you all the best for your conference.